Flamenco Cafe. My name is Kasandra and I'm your host for our program, Flamenco Cafe, where we bring flamenco art, music, dance, and culture to you. And we are coming to you from Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I'm sitting here with my friends Jafelin, flamenco singer, and Gerardo, aka Gary, flamenco guitarist. And what we share in common is our love of flamenco in this small little town called Jerez de la Frontera, which resides in Andalusia, the south of Spain. And our addiction to the Buleria, which is a very complicated song form, as we found out. And we're going to take this into episode 2, where we're explaining Buleria por fiesta. Now, you might ask me, why are we spending this much time on Buleria and what the significance is? I consider the Buleria a very important song form, especially for the dancer, because it offers a little window into what we call Cuadro Flamenco. Cuadro Flamenco is when we have a flamenco guitarist with a flamenco singer and the interaction of the palmas with the dancing. And together, it's a form, it's a little jazz interplay between 4 people. We might consider, especially here in North America, that flamenco is any kind of dance, just like ballet or jazz or hip hop, but really it's not, because the true essence of flamenco resides in the cuadro, and it is an interplay between the musicians and the dancer. Bulerias por fiesta is an improvisational fiesta form. And so we're going to take you on a cultural journey into what we found over many decades now. But first, Jafelin, why do you have a love affair with Jerez de la Frontera? Why do you keep going back there? You went 4 times last year in a single year. Just why?
Oh my God, okay. Hi, everybody. This is like traumatizing. After you sing Bulerias de Jerez and you just transport your mind to Jerez, then you come back now into the cold weather, another country, and I have to speak in English. So, okay, why? Okay, for lots of reasons. Okay, first of all, I keep going back to Jerez because that's where my teachers are. All my teachers that, where I started learning flamenco. This is number 1, and of course they give you a different perspective. How you learn flamenco is not the same like when you go and turn on the YouTube and then you go see somebody else, David Lagos, Melchora, or somebody else. And
what, you can't learn flamenco cante from a CD?
Yes, you can, but the experience and the insights are much deeper and different when you do that, right? That's number 1. The other reason, of course, is I happened to open a store in Jerez de la Frontera in November last year. So that's one of the other reasons. And for me, one of the reasons also are the visitation to the peñas, because every time I go to a peña, it's like a total different experience, going to a theater or...
What is a peña?
It's a peña. Peña are very sacred places where you can go to experience and witness flamenco, especially singing. And then the festivals, we have the festivals in February, right? But the festivals, Jerez is beautiful when it's all this time for the festivals. We find many people there from different places, but I like it when there is festivals, but I like it more when there's no festivals, because when there's no festivals, you could experience Jerez de la Frontera in their vivid lifestyle, and it brings you, I know it's not a modern city, but it's a city that have very little different things that brings you to another time in life, and how people used to do things, and the familiarity they connect with you in different ways that we connect here in this country. So I love to visit Jerez because of that. Also, my sister is in Jerez. Also, I have many friends besides not only teachers, but it's the beautiful thing that you're just, you're going up to your house and then coming, and everybody goes in the street and say, adiós, yeah, ciao, café. It's something that you cannot find here in this country. And that's the reason I love Jerez, because it's very special. It's very special for me.
Well, from the foreigner's point of view, Jerez is a tiny town. So if you only have, 2 weeks to go there on vacation, you're probably only spending a day there to see the Andalusian horses, to visit a sherry bodega, and maybe catch a glimpse of flamenco if you're lucky on an average day. But for the people that study flamenco, live and breathe and dance all day, play guitar all day and sing, it is a major epicenter by which we try very hard to experience the culture. And it is a quaint little town, and you can sit in the cafe in the morning alone with no friends, and within 10 or 15 minutes somebody will pop themselves next to you and ask you why you're here. So this is one of the reasons to always...
very easy. You can make friends very easy. Isn't it very...
Always return.
Yeah.
You should say really something about him going first time.
Like
something
what you were saying about the way that people are so friendly and so forth. In my experience when I was living there, if I had something I needed to get done, say one morning, I had the whole morning to get something done.
Yeah.
I would have to pick my route to get there very carefully.
That's true.
Or else, I know I would take me like 10 times longer than I had to get there, because you're going to run into this person, you're going to run into the next person, you're going to run into the next person.
That's true.
And talk and talk. Oh, have a drink. Let's go and have a drink. So you can get too many things done in one day there. No matter, even if you try to pick a route where you're not going to run into anybody, it's impossible. So
one of the earliest experiences of me in Jerez was, we're always in a rush here in Canada, right? What do we do in the morning? We go to Starbucks either through the drive-thru or pick something up at the window, and we're walking down the street with our coffee mug and eating a banana on the way, and people think we're insane in Spain when we do that. You have to go to the cafe. The fastest way is go to the bar, order your café con leche, and you're still waiting there talking to people for 10 minutes before you get your café con leche, right? So let's go to Gary. So how was Jerez when you were there extensively in the 1970s and 80s?
Well, I went to Jerez because I like very much this guitar style from Jerez, and because Jerez is probably the most traditional, most conservative town for flamenco. In other words, they've really held back into plunging 100% into the very modern, jazzy kind of flamenco. They've kind of preserved the roots more there in Moron also. So that's the reason I went, and there were some guitarists I wanted to study with there.
And who were they?
Originally I wanted to study with Manuel Morao, the uncle of Moraito. And so when I first went to Jerez, I found him, and he told me he was just too busy. He wasn't giving lessons, he couldn't give lessons, but he recommended me to go to a guy called Morales, who was, I think, in his 80s at that time. And he used to just come out and give me lessons in his pajamas. But he was a direct student. He had studied directly with Javier Molina, who was the actual founder of the Jerez style of playing. So I learned a lot of original Javier Molina, the way they're supposed to be, from this guy. And so that was good. And then there was another person called Rafael Aguila, who taught all the generation of the 60s, 70s guitarists, like like Periquin, like Inuhero, like Paco Sapero, Rafael Alarcon. He was the teacher of a lot of those people, and he was a very interesting guy. He lived in this little shack and dirt floor, and it was full of, he didn't really have anything, just kind of a broken down table and some kind of rickety chairs. But he also, interestingly, he had piles up of old magazines and newspapers and books everywhere. But when I first found him, I was looking for his house, and I was asking nearby, where is he live, you know, and they said, oh, he lives over there. And I started to walk over there, and then I see this guy coming, holding a bag of fish heads. and I said, I thought it was him. I said, you're Rapper Edagda? And he said, oh, yeah, I'm him, you know, and I live here, and this is my lunch. And so he would give very short lessons. So you'd go there, and his lessons were only about 10 or 15 minutes long, but you'd have all these young kids waiting in line kind of for the next person to go in. And he would give a very short lesson, and then the next person would come in.
So you'd be in that lineup too?
I'd be in the lineup, and then he was a guy who had been in and out of the, I guess, asylum. Insane asylum. He had actually been in there, in and out. He was kind of an eccentric guy, I guess. And he was actually, they tell the story that he was in there with another great flamenco singer who was called Macandé. And Macandé was also a guy that was in and out of the asylum. And supposedly while they were both in the asylum together at times, they would be doing incredible flamenco stuff in the insane asylum.
Oh wow!
So I have to say that all this story, this is super interesting. But also notice that all these guitarists that they are mentioning right now are non-gypsies. So the schools that the guitar school came from non-gypsies guitarists.
Yeah, the Jerez school is most of the famous. You know, with the exception of maybe Sapero, most of the famous guitarists from Jerez that we know about since the 70s or so.
You're talking about Jose Sapero or?
No, Paco Sapero, who's not Roma, he's not gypsy. But these other ones like Moraito, like Periquin, they're all gypsy, and they're the most famous representatives of the Jerez school. Yes. But the actual founders of the Jerez school would be Javier Molina and Rafael Alarcon, who taught all these guys, and neither of them were gypsy. So it's kind of interesting.
That's cool. Great stories.
And Jerez is just a place, like I say, I'm very traditional minded in everything, and so that I kind of gravitated towards Jerez because I like to maintain the tradition, and that's the town that really has maintained it.
Good point. Well, for me, I've been going to Jerez de la Frontera since 1998, and this is quite a few years after you were going, and I always approach Jerez from the standpoint of someone who's foreign, who's studying flamenco very intently. So I started going to Jerez back then, and I used to go to the Festival de Jerez year after year after year, and when we go to study dance, we're not messing around. So we're talking about 2.5-hour courses in the morning, eating the biggest lunch you can to survive the next 2.5 hours. And Festival de Jerez is a place where you go hog wild because it's a 2-week festival, usually in September. And there's dancers from all over the world, from Brazil, Venezuela, USA, Japan, China, Australia, and we would all actually congregate there to study with some of the most famous people of the time. So some of my teachers were Belen Maya, Isabel Bayon, Rafaela Carrasco, as well as Manolete, Murcia Esmeralda, Blanca Del Rey. And it was seriously hog-wild because in that experience we only had 2 weeks to cram in flamenco. So it was 5 hours of dancing a day. And then there were 7 o'clock shows. And then there were 9 o'clock shows. And then there's midnight peña shows. So sometimes we would see 3 shows in a day after 5 hours of dancing. So this is me with all my friends from all over the world, and by the end of the day we'd be like dead. So
Wow.
so that's how we would go to study flamenco in Jerez.
Imagine I was going one teacher at the time,
Shit.
like going to Jerez. Maybe I see all the teachers there for a week, like I pile 2 or 3 teachers, whatever style was, and then I go, okay, we have to go now to Cadiz, and then now we have to go to Madrid, like that. And that's the way I really started also to
But until
study.
you find those teachers, how do we study flamenco unless we know who we want to study with?
Yeah.
That happened much later on, but in the beginning you're like, oh, let's study with as many people as I can, as fast as I can, so you can sample everything.
Yeah.
And then over years you realize, I really had to focus with that teacher for 2 or 3 months.
Exactly.
Right?
And then, or a style, or, it's like what happened to me studying Malagueñas. I'm not going to mention teachers, but then after you start one Malagueña and somebody tells you, oh no, that sounds Malaga style. I go, oh, I'm thinking Malagueña are from Malaga, right? So, yeah, but you have to have aire de Cádiz. So you go, oh no, my God. Oh no, what I do? Well, after you take almost like a whole, seriously, 5 months to do this properly, then they tell you that the feeling has to be like Cádiz. So then you have to all seriously go back again and start over. That doesn't mean that what you learned didn't work, but if you're gonna present that in Cádiz, you better go study with the right people.
Good point.